Hey there, it's Heather from Sunshine Hunting. Today we're going to talk about loneliness. And before we get all started with that, I wanted to talk with you, or actually invite you to like my business page, Sunshine Hunting, on Facebook, because there you will find the daily support lives that I post. And you don't have to show up for the daily lives if you don't want to. Because right now they're a little hectic. I'm trying to schedule them time-wise, but they're there and available for you to have access to as needed, because I think it's an important thing to know that there's somebody there available to you when you need it, a daily support system in place, a daily smile, a daily check-in. You can post a message. There'll be a response. There'll be something where you will feel supported, and you won't feel like you're going to be scammed or swindled, or it's not about religion or where your country you're from or politics or anything like that, right? It's just a completely safe space where you can come and feel supported, because I felt I needed that. And that was part of the reason why I ended up getting post-traumatic stress disorder, which inevitably I now realize was CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, due to the fact that I was traumatized as a child, and then multiple times as I was growing up as a young adult. But and it was due to the lack of not feeling supported. Now, and arguably the odd part about it is that, I wouldn't say that came from like a bad family. Like, I didn't have a dysfunctional family. Like, I had a pretty normal family. And I want to speak to the fact that, we're not going to be able to bubble wrap our children and prevent them from, not having trauma. It's just not going to happen. Something traumatic's going to happen to them. And then with the way society is, chances are, something else traumatic might happen from them, But the thing is that what we can do is we can prepare ourselves to cope with these things, these very real human experiences that people go through, and give them the tools that they need in order to thrive. And us as adults need those tools too, so we can thrive. And I think that my one little cat over here that's off frame is going to jump up on here. She's blind, so we'll see if it happens, but if you hear noise, that's what's going on. And sometimes to recognize that the destruction of our lives that we had built happens because we need to rebuild a stronger one with a better system in place. And if the foundation is strong, it's okay. We're going to be okay. And so I want to build that foundation with you guys. And, there's that thing called see, do, teach, right? So I'm anxious for that. Now, many of you, I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news since COVID, middle of COVID. It was too much. I was working as a veterinary nurse at that period of time. And I had to compartmentalize. I had to rally big time. I was having extreme anxiety. It was before I was diagnosed. And I had to walk away from it. So I haven't watched really the news since. Because it's the 24-hour news cycle, and if it leads, it bleeds, and that whole thing. I'm not recommending this. I'm just saying that it's one of those things that creates a lot of anxiety and in me. And I know that if something is really important, that I'll find it. You know, it's not that I don't skim highlights and see things. She is behind me, the kitty. It's I do, but I know that what's important is, and what I need to take care of is going to find me in order for me to take care of it. And everything else that I have no control over, I really have no control over. So it's better that I don't worry about it. So with that being said, the Surgeon General announced the epidemic of loneliness in America a couple weeks ago. When you find this video, it'll be whenever you find it. But that to me is appalling, that 1 in 2 Americans is suffering from loneliness. And it's not just lonely, I'm lonely. It's extreme loneliness since the pandemic. And arguably it was pretty bad before the pandemic. And it's heightened because of job loss and separations and trauma, basically. And they're feeling unfulfilled. And as we age, it makes it harder for us to connect. But also, due to traumatic events that have happened over time, like for instance, like people with post-traumatic stress disorder, arguably have a difficult time connecting with other people because, one, they feel like they don't want to burden them. They feel shame, regret, anger, all these things, right, that go along with it. And when you start to feel all those feelings, you don't want to put it on like a big giant suitcase and hand it to somebody else. It's so overwhelming, right? And that's the reason why you want cognitive behavioral therapy and mental health professionals come in to help you navigate and work through those things. But it doesn't change the fact that you feel alone, and you felt alone before, which is where got you into this. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has post-traumatic stress disorder, but I'm saying that arguably, I bet there's quite a bit of the population out there that might be exhibiting signs of extreme anxiety, stress, trauma, and isolation due out of fear to the environment and the world that we are living into today, because they're having a difficult time adjusting. And because of that, I have been through a crazy amount of things in my life, especially in the past couple years. And overcoming loneliness was a big one for me. And I want to help others navigate that, along with a bunch of other things, right? So a lot of it comes down with self-care. But I'm going to first tell you guys a story about how I felt. I remember I always felt alone. I remember I was attacked by a dog when I was younger. It was our dog. And that was a miracle. I don't want to go into a big long thing with that another day. But I was bullied at school, per se. Basically, like, nobody would talk to me because my face was swollen, and I was 9 and I was going to a new school, right? And so I was kind of alienated, really. More alienated than bullied. It happened again at the workplace, where I was multiple times when I became a veterinary nurse, where I didn't fit in. And in hindsight, it was probably a cultural difference, but they didn't understand that I was genuinely wanting to learn, and I was genuinely excited about what they knew and the love of the job. And they took that as, well, I don't really know how they took it. I don't really care, to be honest. But I just was not somebody that they wanted around. It became quite painful, because I was segregated. I was not talked to. I wasn't helped. Like if I needed help, because you need people to help restrain animals so you can do your job. And because I was suffering from undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, I had unregulated emotional outbursts. But I didn't know I had that problem, right? I didn't know I was being traumatized at home. I didn't know any of that. Now I know, right? Now I'm learning how to cope with it. So I was made fun of. And I was passed over for promotions despite the fact of my ability. Now, I don't want you to think that I was this person that was lashing out. I knew I was having those experiences take place, and I was getting frustrated and angry, and I didn't know how to calm myself down in order to have a discussion, because I was being disrespected in the workplace, and management wasn't doing their part in order to make me feel safe. But at the same time, I should have just left. I should have just realized that that place was not the right place for me to work at, because I don't want to work in an environment that doesn't want me there, that doesn't value me, that doesn't see me as a valuable asset to their team. And I know that now. I didn't know that at the time. I thought that maybe if I did better, or I was stronger, or I knew more or something, or if I was nicer, that they would maybe change their mind. But they're not. And they're just going to make their mind up. However they're going to make their mind up, for whatever reason. And so I know that now. And I forgive them. You know, they're facing their own demons. You know, we all have our own problems. The bottom line is that when you feel like you're so alone, like you've tried and asked in so many different ways for help, and you have people around you that don't hear you, that in essence are gaslighting what you're saying, are deflecting your feelings, making you feel unworthy, unvalued, like your life doesn't matter, that your whole purpose is solely meant to care and be the benefit of their own well-being. You begin to slowly start, and your foundation is not strong, right? Your internal foundation, right? Your self-worth is not strong. Your self-care, your self-love is not strong enough. And you get validation from making other people happy. What you end up doing is you end up sacrificing everything who you are to make them happy, right? And this vicious circle starts happening. So you give up your career that you wanted so badly. For me, it was acting. You start financially paying for things and giving things to other people because you have the money and they don't, but you've worked really hard to get that stuff. But you feel guilty because you have it and they don't. But certainly you could benefit from having a vacation because you've worked so hard, but you feel guilty and they need it. but you don't deserve to have that enjoyment for some reason. Or you feel like you have to pay for them to enjoy the stuff with you. And it's this vicious circle where you're constantly trying to win over people or trying to make other people like you or feel better because you're afraid to be alone. And the whole reason that you're afraid to be alone is because you've made up this idea in your head about what it's like when you're alone. What it's going to be like. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be alone. Is this all I have left for me? Am I going to be... For me, it was that lady working until my hands bleed at 96 years old, until I die. That was my fear. You know, that curmudgeon-y, like, waitress that hates her job. Like, that was my fear, right? I didn't want to be that person. But that's just the story I'm playing in my head. And really the whole thing is that I had a therapist tell me that I was already abandoned. I was already alone. I was already doing everything by myself, because these people, after being ghosted by people or being told that, so painful, right? Told that I was alone. I had been alone all this time. And I had already been living alone. That I already been thriving. Well, arguably not thriving, but let's say I had already been coping, being alone. And that I was just telling myself and playing the story in my head about how horrible my life was going to be if I was alone. And that was what was so terrifying. That was the first step. That was the first step. And once I realized that, it was like this radical acceptance that I was like, oh my God, I am alone. I've been alone this whole time. I've been doing this all by myself. This is how the state of the house, the state of my bills, the state of my finances, all this stuff has happened like this because I've allowed it to happen, right? Like I've done it. This is all me. And once you start to realize that, then you can start taking action. Then you can start saying, okay, now I can do something about it. Now I can start implementing some change. So, I'm not saying there's not going to be days where you're crying in your bed at night, missing somebody that you love and care about. I'm not saying that. Because when I had to walk away from that catfish, because I knew it was just a fantasy and it wasn't real, and that his whole objective was just to manipulate me and take money from me, and it was just a game over and over and over, a fantasy that was never going to happen. And the thing that I was getting from it in the beginning was no longer present. It was just causing more pain, right? Very much similar to my relationship with my husband. Very much similar to my relationship with my job, right? Once I realized that, and I had to say, I love you, but I have to love you from a distance because you're not good for me. And in order for me to get better, in order for me to get well, I have to walk away from you because you're not good for me. And sometimes you have to do that. You have to make that assessment, you know? And that's why you need skilled licensed professionals, right? To help you. That's what cognitive behavioral therapy helped me so much, you know? Navigate through that stuff. The other thing that, and I'll post this as well on my website, but you'll have access to that as well as my link tree, like maybe the downloads, is you know, realizing that you know, we all have needs, like we all have human needs, right? Touch and wanting to be held and things like that. And I had gotten to such a point of being in so much pain and so hurt by people around me, and I had put those walls up so high. And I write about this in the foreword of my next book, but that I don't even feel safe. I hate to say that now, but because I feel like I'm navigating, you know, back and forth from this, like wavering on this subject. But at the time when I wrote it, I felt so unsafe giving my heart to anybody other than myself and God, you know, or a higher power, whatever you believe in. And if you don't believe in anything, then yourself, right? And that's what I'm trying to say, is like, we're gonna have to stop as a society to pointing fingers on what you believe in and who, and get to this point of trying to be more adaptive to people's own belief systems, right? And let them just navigate it on their own. But yeah, so if you don't believe in a higher power, it is, then it would be yourself. Because, and all that pain that I felt, I had to really make a conscientious choice to give to myself. Because once I started realizing, oh my God, I was doing all these things and I wasn't even doing them for myself. Like I was putting all these people above me, you know? Like I was eating popcorn and living off of popcorn while he was fine dining on, like, the Catfish was fine dining on chicken and vegetables and wine. Are you kidding me? Really? Come on. How absurd is that? What a jerk, you know? And the fact that he would even, you know, but that just shows you the compassion and the care that I have for somebody. That I could show up, how much I could show up for somebody. But it also shows you how dangerous somebody can use that against you. So I am digressing into another episode in the future. But as we go further into this, you also find your support in other things. Like, for instance, like for me, it's my cats. Like many of you guys know, I have 10 rescue cats. And no, I'm not a hoarder. A hoarder doesn't tell you how many cats they have, and they don't get medical care. And that's a whole nother thing. I rescued a colony. They're all spayed and neutered, and it's part of my job as a veterinary nurse, not to rescue cats, but it was, I have a little battery on my phone. It was part of it's a kind of a thing, you know, people own or surrender their cats or things like that. But anyway, they bring me a lot of joy, and they've saved my life. And I believe that in the loneliest part of my life, when I felt very hopeless and I was counting the years to when their existence would be over so I could not be here on this earth anymore, God sent me, kept sending me more cats, let's put it that way, to make sure that I would stay, because he knew that as long as I had an animal to take care of, that I agreed to take care of, that I would show up for them. So, and it got me through that hump. So I have 10 beautiful little cats that I packed in my car and took with me from Los Angeles to Montana. Those are the only real things that I took when I lost everything. And I don't regret any of it. Obviously I took a few bits and pieces of clothing and my computer and things like that, but also, like, that was the other big thing, is they were saying to join social groups, you know, and you know, most of those things fizzled out during the pandemic because of quarantine restrictions. And the other big thing is to find and experience hobbies that you like. And you know, when my psychiatrist told me to do that, like go to like community things, they don't realize, like, when you have this problem, it's really hard to put yourself out there to meet people and to trust people, which brings me back to my support page. You know, sometimes it's just something little like that, to show up every day, or to be part of another community of like-minded people that you can start building a rapport with, and start having a conversation with, and you can start seeing that there's other people that are like you, because you feel so alone and so polarized that you can't possibly believe that anybody else is out there like you. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of us out there. And you know, I've discovered that there's so many beautiful things you can do, like even in your own town. Like the other day, I went to a nursery and took photos of the plants at the nursery, because they were so beautiful, and posted them. I live in Montana, so there's all these beautiful places to go, but California did too, right? And they're free. But just trying to find little things that bring you moments of joy, and stop looking to be happy. Stop trying to find happiness, but trying to find moments of joy. That's the thing. That was a big thing. I stopped trying to be happy, and I just tried to look for moments of joy. And there's probably a couple other things. They say having a support group of people, that's a big one. Doctors, getting professional mental health, that's helpful. Support groups. But yeah. So anyway, the good thing is that my Catfish, he was there through a dark period of my time. He was there when I felt the most unvalued and the most worthless ever. And I'm appreciative of that. And so I guess we look at those moments as like blessings, and hold on to those moments, and focus on those things, and not the moments that we don't have anymore. It's bittersweet. Oh, and created a lot of wonderful poetry with them too. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy my talk about loneliness. And I'm anxious to read your guys' comments below.